Bitcoin is going to all-time new highs. It's inevitable. Whether it happens over the next 6 months or the next 24 months is as close as a guarantee as you can get with extra high probability. And today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a secret that most people don't know to ensure that you can leverage what's about to occur. Probably the biggest bull run to date in all crypto history. That's over, 13 years, 12, 13 years. So if you like today's content, like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, because here is all about increasing your financial health. So to know what to do, first you must know what not to do. So that's going to be the initial focus. Know what approach you should not be following. So the first thing and the most important thing is the crowd. Over the long run, the crowd is always wrong. That's right. What everyone is doing, you almost want to be doing the opposite. So the approach that the crowd is paying attention to is what you do not want to be doing. Why? Because usually, more often than not, with pretty much high certainty, high probability, the crowd is usually wrong. So what's the biggest thing that you should be ignoring? It's the daily news. It's the worst approach to base your buying and selling information and decision making on. Burn the news. Block it out, whatever way, whatever you need to do. Literally, get yourself away from the daily news, especially with cryptocurrency. You've heard of fear of missing out, FOMO, FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. All of this is designed in a way to throw you off. So we want to ignore the news. Yes, you heard me right. Ignore it. It plays a very little into the actual price action, which is what we're really interested in. So herd mentality. When the herd is all running towards a cliff and literally falling off the cliff, the one running in the opposite direction seems crazy. So you need to get a little crazy and do the opposite of what the herd is doing. So there's only one major determinant of the movement in the markets: the direction and change of the mass psychological mood. You heard me right. The markets are driven by fear and greed. And if you can understand this at a high level, you're going to be able to see stuff that no one else can see, or the vast majority cannot see. So something that is inherent in mankind, whose members are betting on the movement of price in a particular market, represents the psychological mood. And these patterns and sequences tend to measure themselves and represent themselves and repeat themselves. So crowd psychology. I'm now going to show you the best way of reading crowd psychology in a very simple format. Markets tend to move in a 5-wave structure to the upside. And what this 5-wave structure represents is psychology, literally psychology. So on the far left, when it begins, is literally the worst news, like the worst news that you can anticipate. This is like a rebound, like survival. People know that the worst is over. So this is what we're going to anticipate with a lot of cryptocurrencies. But then we usually get a retest of this. And sometimes the news over here is worse than over here. But then the optimism comes in. And once this high gets exceeded, we reach a point of recognition and the price action just explodes to the upside. And wave 3s tend to be the most powerful wave. Then we have something called the surprising disappointment, also known as a profit-taking wave called wave 4. And then we have the final move of a wave 5, which is often the most important wave to identify because we're coming towards the end of a major trend. And then what follows next is a bigger correction than any other correction that's formerly occurred, which is basically wave 4 and wave 2, and is dictated as a wave A, B, and a wave C. So what I'm going to do for you now, this is called Elliott waves, by the way, and the best way of learning this is by taking my masterclass. I've created it for you that goes into this in incredible depth. It's in the description link below. It's absolutely free, and you'll get some great value. But what I'm going to do now, I'm going to show you a chart that's displaying textbook Elliott wave patterns, and I want you to guess what it is. So here's the chart. It's since early 2017 up until literally this week. Like, I took this screenshot this morning. Can you guess what chart this is? And look at the resemblance. Here's the theory, and here's the actuality. Well, first of all, before I reveal to you what chart it is, in fact, write it down below what you think it is. I want to see if you get it right. What chart do you think this is? Now, before I show you what it is, what typically occurs after a 5-wave sequence to the downside. That's why this is important. After a big A, B, C correction on a macro degree, what tends to happen is a continuation of the former trend. In other words, all-time new highs. All-time new highs. And the next expansion of the market is normally bigger than the first one. In other words, the next all-time new highs is normally bigger than the first bit. So when we're looking at the pattern on this particular chart, what we anticipate based on herd mentality, human psychology, is the next move to the upside is going to be bigger than this one. And that's why we anticipate that we're going to see the biggest bull market in all of human history in terms of crypto. Crypto's been around since 2009, so it's going to be the biggest bull market. Why? Because of this chart pattern. This is human psychology in a textbook fashion unfolding. So have you guessed what it is? Well, it's Bitcoin. Yes, this is literally Bitcoin, and this is the chart pattern, right? So what do we anticipate? Hey, it's not going to happen tomorrow. We got some work to do. We got some serious work to do. It's going to go through its own 5-wave sequence of its next expansion, which is going to be a rebound. We're going to have a retest. We're going to have the most powerful wave 3 of wave 3, which is going to be explosive, which means Bitcoin is inevitable. The probability of it going over $100,000 is so high, it's ridiculous. Even just purely from a technical standpoint. We're just looking at pure human psychology and ignoring the fundamentals, ignoring the news, ignoring outside market information, just price, momentum, pattern, and time. That gives us enough information. So if you want to learn how to leverage this, take my free Elliott Wave and Fibonacci Masterclass. Is in the description link below, and it shows you this. And I've been doing analysis of Bitcoin. We pegged this top over here. My first ever video on YouTube was actually on Bitcoin. April 2019, we pegged this top. And then as this unfolded deep and we saw this part, it was like, okay, it's likely now that we're going to see a low. And we've done lots of videos on this as well. And it's all about probabilities and never certainties. But now we've got a macro thesis. We're likely to see the next expansion of the market. So let's finish on a quote today. I'm going to keep this Bitcoin chart on because it's so important. So today's quote is from my book, The Extraordinary New Venture Capital Opportunity, How to Invest Like a Pro. But it's from chapter 3, and it's Confucius. And the quote goes, "It does not matter how slowly you go, as long as you do not stop." Now, if you've been in crypto for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, you would have gained, and if longer, you would have gained a lot of learnings. You'd have gained a lot of learning during this phase, and during this phase. You want to apply those learnings because what we saw here, this amazing movement from around $3,000 to eventually around $65,000, $69,000, we're going to see a bigger version of that. And I use the word going to because it's inevitable. Now, we don't know if it's going to happen in the next 6 months or the next 24 months, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's like the probability of happening is so high, it's ridiculous. Your job is to get on the right side of the market and ride that trend because the trend is your friend. Ride it until its end, until it reaches its bend. Now, Bitcoin is at the bend on the way down, like this downward movement, and it's about to reach a bend. And when it does, it's not going to take off straight away. But when it does take off, especially when it reaches what's called a point of recognition, then we have something called a wave 3. And boy, when that takes off, it's going to be similar to this wave 3, but even bigger. So now is the time to sharpen your axe, sharpen your skills, because the next 6 to 24 months is going to be the best season of cryptocurrency in all of human history. I know it's since 2009. So now's the time to sharpen your axe and get ready. We don't want to react, we want to anticipate. And that's the beauty of Elliott Wave. It allows you to anticipate what's going to happen because most people, the crowd, are normally 2 steps behind. You want to be 2 steps ahead. All right, I'll see you in my next video.